Welcome to Purpose City, Stories of Humanity in Action, sponsored by Executive Wealth Management. Guests on Purpose City do not necessarily reflect an endorsement of Executive Wealth Management.
Welcome to the very first podcast of Purpose City, Stories of Humanity in Action. And today I got two people with me. One is one of the most recognizable and trusted icons in Michigan, Chuck Gaidica.
Wow, that makes me sound really old.
Just, semi-old.
Thank you.
And then Kyrstin, Ritsema, who is a Chief Compliance Officer at Executive Wealth Management. And briefly, Kyrstin, what is a Chief Compliance Officer? It sounds intimidating.
Yeah, what is that?
It's intimidating. That's my entire job. No, Chief Compliance Officer is the person within a registered investment advisor who is tasked with ensuring that the Securities and Exchange Commission regulation is in place within the advisor. And that's why it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of big words in regulation.
And you have to make people comply.
Well, you can't make people do anything. You can set it up so there's bumpers in place to make sure that they can stay within their lane.
Right. Which includes here, right? Certain
Mostly
things
just you, Ken. I don't have any control over Chuck.
That's
That's because I'm on the other side of the table, you know.
It could be, but I have long legs. I can really get your shins if necessary.
Okay.
So, Chuck,
Yes, sir.
so I know what you've been up to, but not everybody does. So
Yeah.
if the last they saw you was, well, it could have been Live in the D,
Could have been.
right?
Could have been.
Previously, well, you're iconic with Channel 4.
I was
Weatherman.
with Channel 4 full-time for 27 years, and then 2
Wow.
years part-time with Live in the D.
Okay.
And then, lots of other programming in between there and different projects. And that was part of the fun of my job. I mean, everybody kind of knows me for the weather, but I also did the lottery show. I hosted Live in the D, or co-hosted. And then I also was part of all the specials, which was great. Thanksgiving Day was never the same, for our household. So.
I saw you, I think I told you one time at Thanksgiving, you're running up and down. I was in the Thanksgiving Day parade with high school students. And, it looks fun on television, but it's kind of tough. It's early. It can be cold.
Yeah, it's a really early call, and there were years, very few years, where I had to wear the high-tech long johns.
Yep.
For the most part, my running is what saved me those mornings, because I could at least warm up.
Right.
Some people had to ride a float all the way down, and they were freezing.
Yeah.
So for me, that was actually kind of a saving grace. And It was a tradition for me. It was just great to be part of it for actually part of the Thanksgiving Day parade for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one time I did it, I thought it would be cool. They said you're going to be in this rock and roll 50s thing or something. I forgot what station float we were by walking. So they costume you up, and then they do all the makeup. And I came out, and I looked like a clown doing rock and roll in the 50s. It was terrible. So I wiped the makeup off, so I
that's
didn't
too
look
much.
too
Yeah.
ridiculous. But
So I was just the other turkey. That's all. I was just that one. Yeah.
that's right. So, you're still essentially a young man, and that was years ago. Well,
Yeah,
2018 is when you finished your second run, right?
Yeah. Actually, this summer I'll be going from full-time TV news 7 years. It's hard to believe. It's
Okay.
been like, boom.
Right.
You know.
So what made you choose to, kind of bow out that early? What did you wanted to do?
Yeah. I started to feel probably in my 40s that I got kind of a knock on the door of my life. And it was what a lot of people experience. And now I've actually gone through a program that helps to flesh that out. I entered halftime. And halftime is a very interesting way, kind of a fun way of talking about your second half of life. Even then, God willing, I've got another half. Right now, the math doesn't work. I'd have to be the longest living guy, right? But second half can typically mean just prior to or as you're entering retirement or you're in retirement. It really doesn't matter. In my case, it was in my 40s. I was nowhere thinking about leaving full-time TV, And what those questions are that come into your mind, and I'm sure they come into everybody's mind. Think back when you're a kid. You're standing outside in the backyard looking up at the stars one night, and you're asking those big questions. Why am I here? Is there a God? What am I going to do when I grow up? Who will I marry? And you fast forward 40s, 50s, 60s, beyond, you're asking, what do I do now? Why am I here? Maybe who will I marry next? It's just a commentary on society, right? It's just life. But you're asking very similar questions to the same ones you asked when you were a little kid.
Right.
And for me, those questions included like, is this what I'm going to do my entire life? And the answer started to come back, maybe not.
All right. Well, at that age or that point of life, the things you're talking about sounds like a constructive way. The destructive way would be what's called a midlife crisis.
Right. There's probably some of that woven in there. Right.
Right.
But I mean, I think
that's the same thoughts
no,
you have. It depends what direction you
Well, it
take.
depends on what you think the gap is between midlife crisis and a halftime role.
Yeah.
Yeah, or how you handle it, how you focus your attention and what you do.
It's the same thoughts. Am I going to do this?
Correct.
Even if you enjoy what you're doing, to be doing this another 40 years, another 20 years, another...
Yeah. And that's part of it. And I think more people would assign to midlife crisis the notion that, well, part of it is your mortality. Part of it is, I think, to be fair, you start thinking, when you're in your 20s and 30s, and certainly in your teen years, you're invincible.
Right.
And then you get to a point where you start thinking, well, wait a minute, the math, doesn't quite go that far. And so for some people, they run out, and even today, people 60 plus, divorce is increasing. Gray divorce is increasing. Mm-hmm. Some people run out and get a Corvette. I mean, some people have an affair. Some people focus their attention on a new chapter. And I would say for a lot of people, there's confusion there. I used to tell my wife, I noticed when I started speaking out loud, we've got 5 kids, and I would say, I think I'm not going to re-sign my contract, And I could see the kids over in the corner with Susan and be like, and I finally looked at them and I just said, I'm having the most fun being confused I've ever had in my life. And you know what that did? It took the edge off the whole conversation. It wasn't like, Dad's crazy. I don't know what's going on. But it really was helpful for me. Yeah. And it was helpful, I think, for them to say, oh, well, he's not crazy. There's just something going on.
Well, when you looked at them, when you're standing in that living room and Susan's looking at you like, okay, well, I've been with him this long. I guess I'm going to take this next journey too. Sure. What do you think that triggering event was? What do you think what is it that really made the decision easy to just step away?
For me to step away, it was not an easy decision because I loved I loved the station. I loved my coworkers. I was flying at a level that was really great, professionally. They'd always been very good to me, and the audience was always very kind, and so everything was working. I think for me, I started to feel like I wanted to do good. And I know that's part of what you discuss on the podcast. But I think for me, I believe we're all charged to go out and do good things. And so I've come to learn, as I look back on this now, that often a lot of people, even there are a lot of broadcasters, tend to think that doing good means you need to go into ministry. Mm-hmm. And so I did go back for a master's. I started my master's when I was 50. And then I went part-time. I was still working at full-time TV news and radio.
And remind me, was it church administration?
It was a ministry and leadership. It's a master's in ministry and leadership. And part of that I lived in Israel and Jordan for a month. I took a month off, sabbatical, and I had great support from the station. And at that point, it still wasn't in my mind like I was going to change my life. So here I am at age 54. I've got the master's. And, I look back and I think in my life, I'm a lifelong learner, which I think is instructive most of the time. But at my pace, I'm going to get a PhD when I'm 90. It's just not working
Well, when
fast.
I describe you, I call you a Renaissance man.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So to back up a little bit, which I didn't know, so I recently read your bio, is that you were actually looking to go into health, to be a Dr. Gaidica.
I did when I was at Loyola University in Chicago.
And then you end up being the cuddle alert guy.
Right.
It's quite a jump. So I know I'm moving backwards in the story, but that's still interesting.
Yeah.
So what point made you switch from like medical? Well, you've kind of come full circle, I guess. I have,
because I'm working in health and wellness now,
right.
For the most part. So I got kind of a free ride to Loyola pre-med, pre-dental pre-med. It was either one. You could pick a little later on. And I dropped out in the first half of my first semester. This did not go over well at home. This was a great school. Northwestern said no. Loyola said yes. I went to Loyola. Later on, we do have my son Charles, same name. He wound up going to Northwestern. I thought, well, they got me because it cost money. But, so I just thought, I don't want to be a doctor. Nothing against doctors. And I look back and I think I would have had a lot of fun being a doctor. I really enjoyed the process. So when I dropped out, I went to work at the Walgreens drugstore company as an assistant store manager trainee. And I had a great manager who I remember his name to this day. I've tried to find him to thank him, and I can't find him. His name was Mr. Vigon. And Mr. Vigon called me. I was in the store, and basically an assistant store manager trainee in those days was a stock boy with a key to the safe, right? I could open the store, but there wasn't much I could really do. Okay. And so he called me in the back, and he said, pull up some kind of plastic thing and sit there for a minute. And I thought, oh man, I'm getting fired already? I mean, I just disappointed my parents with dropping out of college. He said, so what do you think you want to do here at Walgreens? And I said, well, I'm in this management trainee program. And he said, I am a manager. You're looking at the highest it's going to get if you stay in a store like this. And he said, I think you can do that easy, but I think there's more in you. I think you should maybe think about doing something else. And
that's the nicest way to get fired ever.
Well, I didn't get fired, but you know what he did? It was kind of, I was a Boy Scout, and it was kind of like the old days where the Boy Scout leader would say, sit on a log, kid, I want to teach you some wisdom, Mm-hmm. And I thought that was real wisdom. And I just sat there thinking, is there something else? He said, no, that's it. He said, you'll do fine if you stay in Walgreens, but I'm just telling you, you're looking at the top. This is it. This is as far as you can go, and I think you can go much farther. It was at that moment I went home. And I thought, well, now how do I take science and math, which I was really strong at, and I did enjoy broadcasting. I did a little bit of that in college. And I thought, how do I combine those? I thought, TV meteorology. Like the light bulb went off. So this Mr. Vigon, when you think
you're Yoda.
Yeah, he was. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Sage.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's how that train track developed,
Well, and now hopefully this connects up to him and he can get his gratitude from you on the.
I hope he's still around. I tried to look him up within the Walgreens system because I'm not sure he even remembers, that he did that.
Yeah. There's always someone or a couple people that help us change a path
or
turn on a light bulb.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I get this right, your motto, philosophy, is to be a force for good, mm-hmm. and to help or encourage or to help others do the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that kind of a later with your 40-ish epiphany?
Yeah, I would say so. I was always doing, we all do good things, and I think I've come to learn that even, I joined a staff at a church, actually a couple churches I was on staff, once as a pastor of many, and then I was also an executive director, which is sort of like pastor meets CEO,
Right.
So that was an interesting journey as well. Both of them rewarding in different ways. But I think I look at it now, we're all ministers. We all go out people are doing good things all the time.
Right.
And for me, I was doing what I thought were good things, from school visits at elementary schools, when I was starting in my career, to emceeing events, to charitable events. And that was always part of the job, though. That was part of it. It wasn't ever a mandate, but I always made it my own personal mandate that I would do those things. That was my way of giving back. And then as time went by, I thought, no, I've got to find maybe a hyper focus on a few things, mm-hmm. and then maybe I could walk alongside people and encourage them. You can do it too. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and I think you're a great example. We'll go back to the midlife crisis thing. That's a fork in the road. You mm-hmm. can choose, and I think that fork comes in a lot of cases, maybe where you were at, when you hit a pinnacle in your career and it levels off. If you don't have that. When you're still striving to get where you want to be, maybe you're not thinking about, I want to do this, you see another. But when you kind of hit that plateau, mm-hmm. Then can I do the same thing? There's a lack of challenge there. You see a monotony maybe happening. And then comes the sports cars or the extra mm-hmm. relationships or there's mm-hmm. something else, this whatever. Or you choose to use your time productively and use what gifts and talents that have gotten you that far to help other people.
And I've met people that all of the above have happened, all at the same time. I've met people who are, I'm not unique in the sense that I was trying to describe my career in kind of a fast way, that I was never feeling threatened like I had mm-hmm. to leave. No one ever said, as a matter of fact, they thought I was kidding when I said, I'm giving you 1 year notice. They're like, that's cute. That's really funny.
Right.
But I think I've met a lot of people, captains of industry, moms who are staying at home. It doesn't matter. I mean, a lot of people come across this notion of this halftime moment, like, what am I going to do with my years left? So for me, because I guess I'm a kind of an analytical guy, I started actually running math in my head. And I started thinking, okay, if I'm an average guy and I'm going to live to 82 and a half, what if I got 25 or 30 Christmas presents to go? And I don't want this to be morbid, because it's not to me. I just thought, well, I should probably get going on doing good things, So that was part of the motivation.
Well, when you went to that halftime moment, I know that you'd mentioned some training that you did prior to this. What was the focus of it? Was it a internal self-focused kind of training, or was it putting it out into the world, like how this is going to affect others at that point in time?
So I read a book starting in my 40s. It's called Halftime, Moving Your Life from Success to Significance. The title resonates with everybody. I've put on a conference where 900 people came, and they all say, that's the thing. I love this idea. And then you read the book, and it does describe this idea. And then I eventually met some of the team from Dallas, and they invited me to be part of a 3-day intensive and then a year of monthly coaching in Halftime. And it really does focus inwardly, finding your purpose. We're doing everything from Briggs-Meyer to StrengthsFinder tests to sitting with world-class coaches, discussing how you can turn that energy outward. And for many people, there are a lot more epiphanies that come along the way. I remember sitting across from a guy, a financial planner, a stockbroker, and he said, my heart breaks. That's one of the questions they ask. What breaks your heart? What would you do for free the rest of your life? Because maybe that's the cool thing you should do, right? And he said, my heart breaks for human trafficking. He was in L.A. And I was I actually went to this class, this weekend intensive out in Malibu at Pepperdine University. And we're sitting at the table, just the two of us in a breakout. And he said, I go every Friday, and I go volunteer at this women's shelter for human trafficking. He said, I think I'm just going to sell my practice and quit it all and just go do that full time. I said, okay, that sounds pretty dramatic, and he's talking out loud. I don't know how this is going to go over with my wife. I mean, I'm relating to it because I'd already gone through this myself. And I said, well, wait a minute. What if you just did this every Friday, right, or every Thursday and Friday, and you told all of your clients that that's all you're going to do every Friday? Don't call me. You've got my cell phone, but unless there's a fire, I've got staff. I'm doing this thing in my life every single Friday. I told him, I said, I would think you're the coolest financial planner I've ever met, because that's what you've done with your time. And I saw a light bulb go off for him, and I had other light bulbs go off for me. So it was inward introspection as well as coaching, and then how do we turn that outward to literally to go out and do good things. So it was really a great, fun thing.
So when we look at, a lot of the Purpose City, the guests that we're looking at companies, right? And we brought you on, and we talked a little bit how Chuck Gaidica is his company, is your company, is this personal persona. What are you doing every Friday?
So for me, it's I have probably, I wouldn't call it a frustration, because everybody should have my problem and problems. I've got 5 great kids, all of them except one who's in Manhattan, lives here. We've got 3 grandkids.
I thought they were all great except one.
No, they're all great. They're all great.
I'm going to talk to her about that.
And then we've got another grandchild on the way. So my family life is very important to me. So it isn't every Friday that I do things, but I have, my heart breaks for multiple things. I even try to sit and think deeply and pray about this. I'll wonder, could you just give me one thing, And so it's a bit of a frustration, because I do a lot of different things. And that's fine, because I enjoy that. So I just was part of a couple of events. One was for a homeless shelter in downtown Detroit that serves people. And it's that kind of stuff that I enjoy doing, along with serving. I've actually been to that place and been one of the people that's handing out stuff. So I don't mind being at different levels of giving back, but I don't have one thing. That's a very interesting question. I wish I could find it,
I mean, some of the things, if you term it as what breaks your heart, that's what you lean towards. Sometimes it's not thinking about what breaks your heart. Things in life do break your heart, and then you end up in that area. Yeah. Do you have anything that falls along?
Yeah, I'm involved with the Alzheimer's Association of Michigan. My mom sadly had Alzheimer's, so in 2019, I lost both my mom and dad within 4 months of each other. Didn't see either one coming. Dad's was a brain tumor that he didn't even know he had, And within a few weeks, he was 85 and he decided to have brain surgery and he passed. And then my mom, we thought she had a few more years, but I really believe that there was some broken heart syndrome in there. She knew the day he died, and nobody told her. She knew. Right. So I don't know how that functions in the world, but it happened. We actually saw it. So for me, brain health is really important. And I think what I'm looking at now in my life is how to reach people my age and even younger. There's a new phrase I'm hearing bantered around, prehabilitation, not rehabilitation. Don't wait till you get sick and something's happened and now you try to get better. How about we try to get better and well and healthier before we get to the freight train that's coming, you know? And so I'm involved with Alzheimer's. They've moved their walk. They do a big walk. It happened virtually last year, you know, because of COVID. But this year they're hoping to do it live back at the Detroit Zoo. And year before last, they had 6,000 people show up. So awesome, you know.
Do you find it at all difficult to be involved in something that is that close to you because it triggers too personal of the feelings?
Yeah, have you watched the movie The Father with Anthony Hopkins? He won the Academy Award for it.
Is there a movie without Anthony Hopkins?
I was gonna say no, but I'll write it down.
It's a tearjerker, and it's he's got Alzheimer's. That's you know, I won't give much of the rest of the movie away, but
it makes it hard to watch. Right?
Extraordinary performance. Oh, it was really bad for me.
Right.
And I've got a 2-year-old puppy. She's not, well, she acts like a puppy. She is the most emotionally connected dog. So I'm sitting there and I'm crying on the couch next to Susan, and this dog jumps up and she's chewing my ear and licking my face. And I just thought, you know, I don't know, dog spelled backwards is God. There's a reason that dogs are what they are, you know. And yeah, that was tough.
I just want to clarify. So after a master's in divinity, God and dog, some kind of
I think
connection.
You can tell a lot about a person when you see how they play or not with their dogs. Yeah.
So being a layperson with Alzheimer's, as far as knowledge of it goes, it's one of the leading causes of death.
Mm-hmm. It's increasing.
Like, I didn't know till recently, the sixth largest cause of death in the U.S.
Yeah.
And no cure.
Right.
So when you're involved in charities for Alzheimer's, is it looking for a cure? It's the research, or is it the comfort of these people and how to caretake for them and the family support possibly?
It's all of the above. When we found out that my mom had it, we were sitting at Henry Ford, West Bloomfield, at a big family meeting after all the tests. So, I mean, that was a heavy day. Because at that point she's still obviously able to tell, you know, what's going on in life, and she knows what the diagnosis means. But right after that, and through her entire journey of about 7 years or so, we called Alzheimer's Association several times. Even when my dad passed, we didn't know. Do we bring mom to a funeral, even though she'll forget she was there? And then, so they said no, and that's a longer conversation we don't have to get into. Part of it's a huge part is research. They keep coming up with drug therapies, and they haven't found one yet. They've got several that can take the edge off and maybe sharpen a little bit, make things a little brighter, but they don't work on everybody, and they just had a big fail. But you know what? That's what research is. How did we get to the vaccines? You know?
Right.
So, and then part of it is comfort, and a huge part of it is caregiving.
And it seems like the hardest part would be the length of time, isn't it? I mean, the toll on the family, the years. It's not a quick...
Right. And so that in itself, for people who are looking to do good, doing good doesn't have to be the big thing, right? It doesn't have to be the Thanksgiving Day parade big thing. It can be the caregiving in your family's life.
Right.
And so I have to temper my own self. And again, I'm not alone. I'm not speaking like I'm somebody special, but sometimes I just have to say it's not the big things. Being with my kids and my grandkids is part of the big thing.
Oh, for sure.
You know. And so caregiving is a huge part of this. I saw it take a toll on my dad. I've got 2 other siblings. We were kind of coming in around the edges. My sister was doing a lot more because that became sort of her full-time job. And then that creates your identity.
Right.
You know, so yeah, it's a difficult thing. So for me, as I now look at health and wellness, I'm looking at things like the simplicity of, we've all heard about heart health in our lifetime. You know, everybody wants to go jogging or eat healthy. Brain health, =, heart health. If you're thinking of what to eat, how to be healthy about your heart, you're actually doing your brain great favors. And I don't care if you're 40, because I've met people who are in their mid-50s, early onset Alzheimer's. It hits them really early. It's unbelievable to imagine.
How did you see when you were going through this process with your mom, how did that help guide you for this general wellness journey? Because it's not just care for the caregiver. It's how do you find time as the caregiver to stay well and healthy in order to be able to care for that person and your sister and your dad?
Yeah, that's a tough thing. That's a tough thing. And I've wondered, even as I've just become a wellness coach through the Mayo Clinic program. And I've asked myself if maybe a niche shouldn't be trying to reach people who are caregivers. I remember trying to be a caregiver while I'm working full time and thinking I wouldn't have had time to talk to somebody about my own health. That wasn't the priority for me. It was mom and dad's health. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that I've come to learn, and this is applicable, I think, in many walks of life when we're trying to help other people, just like the explanation when you get on a jetliner, if just in case, God forbid, the cabin decompresses and the yellow oxygen masks drop down, they always tell you, put yours on first before you turn to even your own child or somebody next to you to help them. Because if you pass out, you can't help them. Right. And I thought, that's the best analogy in life for being a caregiver. If you're not taking care of yourself, at some point you can't take care of the people around you who you want to help.
Right.
Exactly.
So where's Chuck Gaidica going from here?
God, oh man, I wish I knew.
You've hit the pinnacle by being the first on this podcast.
That's
this is
probably
in the history books.
Yes,
career
yes,
right there.
This is This is and you've said that a couple times in jest, but it is a nice thing. I'm honored to be here. This is really cool for you guys.
Thank you. For being
I'm
here.
excited about this, just to have these conversations.
Yeah.
People's wellness, get them thinking about taking care of themselves, taking care of others. On a bigger platform, you can do business and help your community and take care of the staff within you more than just their paycheck.
Sure.
And I think that's where companies are going anyway. But this is just kind of to pull that out and talk about it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your time on that. But so how do you see yourself? So what exactly, I guess it's a twofold question, is what's it mean to be a Mayo Clinic coach?
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Wellness coach.
Wellness coach.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. And is that your direction? And if so, how do you use that? Or?
It's a credential, being a lifelong learner. So now I look back, I've got a bachelor's, I've got this master's in ministry and leadership. I've got a certificate from Pepperdine and the Halftime Institute in second half significance. So that's a cool credential, but I'm still working on my own. So, but it's fun because I can actually authentically speak to people about it, who are kind of in that time frame in life, which means anywhere from your 40s to your 90s, or 100.
3 more months.
Okay. Prehabilitation, we can get
There we
started
go.
early. Yeah.
Perfect.
And now this new credential. So I am focusing my work. I work a lot with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. I have a podcast. I've done some video work. That's health and wellness. The journey with my parents was health and wellness. Even going back to when you brought up, I started out as a doctor who dropped out. It's all been health and wellness. And actually, this is an interesting place to be because from your perspective, from your company's perspective, and many people who deal in wealth management, we've seen it. You can have all the money in the world, and if you're not taking care of self, if you're not really thinking about it, or illness hits you right after you quote unquote retire, and everything's been planned, you're all the smart people, and you've done all the work, and it's all like, okay, way to go, and something happens. Now what do you do? So I think health and wellness, especially if the COVID year or whatever it's going to turn out to be doesn't remind everybody, you need to really pay attention to this. It's important. So I think a coach is an encourager. So I'll give you that kind of definition. A wellness coach is a listener. It's reflective listening. It's positive psychology. I'm not the expert. You're the expert. And that means that I let you tell me as a coach what it is you want to accomplish. I help steer you or kind of run you through the funnel of, let's create a wellness vision. And that wellness vision is future think, but it's something that's attainable. And then think of it as SMART goals. We've heard about those for a long time in the corporate field, something that's attainable, it's not crazy, and you could actually do it. I'd love to have a Bentley. It's not going to happen, right? I mean, you can don't set your goals where but and then you walk with that person and you try to refine, and you kind of hold their feet to the fire, but you do it in a way where you're letting them reflect back to you. So that's the role of a coach. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a, I got a guy though. If you want a personal trainer, I know somebody, so I can do that. But I think this is really, for me, what I find exciting. It's not different than what Mr. Vigon did to me and said to me at Walgreens. It's whether literally or proverbially, I'm putting my arm around somebody. I'm saying, I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to encourage you in your journey. To me, I find great joy in thinking that at the end, you don't need to look at me and say, man, you helped me lose 20 pounds. You could say, well, maybe your fingerprints are on it, because I don't need to be that guy. So that's what I'm kind of hoping. And whether that manifests itself as personal coaching or doing it through digital work or, expanding the reach or something, the podcast I do does that as well. So I don't know. I'm having the most fun being confused, Ken.
Yeah. Well, you're a good example of a coach. I mean, if people are just listening, you sound healthy, you sound perky. If they're watching,
oh, thanks.
You look great. And if you're watching, he insists that he doesn't dye his hair. So
I don't.
We're taking bids on that. He says he doesn't.
Never have.
Okay, we're going to close with this. I found this on your website.
Yeah.
So Chuck's adventures in life include, I'm going to read a list.
Okay.
Interject anywhere you want.
Okay.
Penetrating the eye of Hurricane Diana.
Flew through the eye 9 times on a 12-hour mission over the Atlantic Ocean. Wasn't as scary as I thought. The briefing was scarier. When the pilot said underneath every other seat is a yellow life raft. If we go down in the ocean, swim for one of those, unzip it, pull the ripcord, it will inflate, get in, and any questions? And I didn't want to be a smart aleck. I said, yes. You mean we're going out in 140-mile-an-hour winds and 50-foot waves, and we're coming out in a little yellow life raft? And he said, oh, no, we're all going to die. But I just have to tell you where it is. That's
right.
the scary part.
That's right. Becoming scuba certified.
That was fun.
Nice.
That's fun. Yep.
Receiving a private pilot's license.
I'm a pilot.
Did you want to fly through a hurricane?
No, I never wanted to do
Not
it
again?
myself.
Good.
No, I can't. They won't let you.
This one I thought was super interesting till I realized I only read half the sentence. I first read becoming an instrument. I thought, really, what instrument did you become? That is
Vocal.
That is amazing.
Instrument.
But it goes on to say, becoming an instrument rated pilot for high
so I can fly through the clouds. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Flying in and piloting a B-17 bomber over Michigan.
Right over Pontiac. They let me fly it because the pilot who was flying it at the moment, it's a World War II aircraft. He was a certified flight instructor. So he knew that as a pilot, I can't just sit in that seat. But as long as he were sitting in the right seat, I could sit in the command seat, and he let me fly the thing right over Pontiac. It was awesome.
Wow. Flying with U.S. Navy Blue Angels.
Oh, ground zero to 20,000 feet in 20 seconds.
Did you make it through?
I did without losing
Well
it.
done. Well done.
Traveling on a 10-day expedition to the rainforest of Peru.
Yep, Dr. Bob Ballard, the guy that discovered the Titanic, was the guy who had this whole program going, and I tagged along, and then 2 years later, they called back and asked me to come on another adventure.
Another adventure with Dr. Bob, which was?
Going to the top of Mount Kilauea in Hawaii and studying the volcano, literally standing right on the top of Kilauea and broadcasting.
And that's one of the most active volcanoes?
It is, yeah. It's fun.
Chasing storms and tornadoes in Oklahoma and Texas. And then you mentioned a month in Israel and Jordan.
Yep.
Swimming with lemon sharks.
That was at Cobo Hall for a live shot for TV News, and it was a tethered dive, which means there's a big hose, like your aquarium with your fish tank connected to me. I didn't have scuba gear, and I'm underwater, and I've got a little microphone in my mask, and I'm doing the weather underwater, but there's a cage behind me with these sharks that are not with me, but it looks like they're with me. So I do the 5 o'clock, and 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock, I get in the tank. The guy who's running the thing, while I'm live, pulls the rope and pulls the cage out. And now the sharks are swimming around, and they're literally
Testing you out.
They're doing
right
this.
there.
And so I get out, and I said, what are you thinking? He said, well, you look cool with the sharks, and the sharks look cool with you. So I thought, why not?
Yeah. And he said, hey,
In case I get eaten, that might be big.
That freaked me out.
when life gives you lemon sharks. I don't know how that is.
That was
Make
good.
a weather forecast.
There you go.
Witnessing up close a water spout on the
That was just on vacation on a cruise ship, and the whole team, everybody dressed in white, the captain, everybody, they're all out looking, and I'm reading a book. Susan and I are sitting next to each other, and we're like, "What? A water spout? My whole career, I wanted to see one of these." Yeah.
And then you mentioned leading trips to the Holy Land. How many times have you done that?
I've been in Israel, the Holy Land 3 times, and led a trip. Was part of 2 trips there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I led one trip in 1997. Haven't been back since. One day.
Yeah. Yeah. One day soon.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best on your podcast.
Thank
I don't
you.
know if I helped or I heard it.
Hey, if this is the first or last, I think it was a good one.
Oh, wow. Now there's positive mental attitude for you.
I like
right?
it.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, thank
right.
you, Chuck. We really appreciate you.
Good to be
being here.
with you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're going to close by showing a little more of what Kyrstin Ritsema does as a compliance officer with Executive Wealth Management.